everybody. Welcome to RPM, Rock and Pop Mandolin, your site for learning classic rock and pop songs on that wonderful little 8-stringed instrument that we all know and love. My name's Mike DeJong, and you know, as long as I've had this YouTube channel, I've always been chasing sound. What does that mean? Well, I've always been looking for the perfect sound or the best possible sound for my mandolin in our videos that I deliver to you guys. And in that regard, I've gone through several mandolins and various microphones with various degrees of success. But you know what? I haven't quite found the holy grail of sound that I've been looking for. Well, at least until now, because the contents of this little red box could very well be that holy grail of sound. That's right, the holy grail could be in this little box here. And I will show you what's inside this box in a minute. But first, if you're new to the channel, thanks very much for checking us out. But don't hesitate to hit that little red subscriber button down there in the lower right corner of your screen. It really helps this channel to continue to grow. And if you are a returning subscriber, thanks very much for coming back. We always appreciate your support. We hope you love this channel. Give us a like if you do. And check out all the links down below. Some of those links will help you get better as a mandolin player. Well, that's enough business. Let's check out what's inside this little red box that could be the holy grail of mandolin sound, coming up next here on RPM. All right, what's inside this little red box here? Well, it's actually not so little, but let's take a look. You know, this is like a Tarantino movie where they open up the box and have some, glowing orange thing inside. Well, it's almost like that. I've got a glowing orange thing inside here too. What is it? Well, this is a large diaphragm condenser microphone from a company called Ear Trumpet Labs out of Portland, Oregon. And this microphone looks and sounds fantastic, actually. As you can tell, if you want to hear what it sounds like, listen to some of the songs that I put at the beginning of this video. I recorded them with this microphone, all right? So what is this microphone? Well, let's take it out of the case and talk about it because I'm really excited about this mic and really excited to tell you all about it. As I said, this is a large diaphragm condenser mic. It's called Fedyna. And it's made by Ear Trumpet Labs out of Portland, Oregon, as I mentioned. The company's owner is Philip Graham, and he runs the company with his daughter, Maliki. And they've been kind enough to send me one of these microphones to try out. You know, I was checking them out all over the internet, and they really seem to be the rage in acoustic music circles. A lot of acoustic musicians, singer-songwriters, bluegrass bands, jazz bands are using these microphones. So I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. So I asked them to send me one, and they did. And I've been trying it out here in my little studio and at a live gig with my band. And I have to tell you, this microphone really, really does the job. It sounds great. There's a real crispness and clarity to my mandolin that really wasn't there before. It really brings out some of the notes, kind of the mid-range, the upper to mid-range notes that really jump out at you when you're playing the mandolin. So it works really nicely here in my studio, and it works live. I used it recently with my band live. And actually, a friend of mine told me that that's the best mandolin sound that he's heard from me. So that was quite a compliment, and quite a compliment to these microphones as well. All right, and what are these microphones? Well, you can see that first off, they're really cool looking. They have a retro look, kind of like the old school microphones you might have seen back in the day in broadcasting. You know, they really look cool in that regard. But don't let the aesthetics fool you. These are not old-fashioned mics inside. They are hand-wired by Philip Graham and his team of engineers there in Portland, Oregon at Ear Trumpet Labs. So they sound state-of-the-art. They're really, really good. And this particular one, the Fedyna, is said to be good for solo instruments like a mandolin or maybe a singer-songwriter scenario. But they also have various other microphones in their catalog, all of them with old-fashioned ladies' names. And they all kind of do different things. So if you're looking for a microphone for a larger band, a larger combo, you might want to choose one of their other ones. They have a microphone that's specifically built for vocals. That's another one that you can look at. And another microphone that they have is specifically built for acoustic bass. So again, check them all out on their website. I'll put the link down below if you're interested in one of these microphones. Another cool part of this rather, is that the top actually swivels like this. You can see that there. So, if you're a singer-songwriter and you want to maybe get a little bit more of your microphone, little bit more of your vocals rather, you can just tilt it up like that. So it'll actually pick up the voice a little bit more than your instrument. But if you want to pick up more of the instrument, you can just tilt it down like that. Can you see that? I'll show it sideways like this. So that's a really kind of unique feature that a lot of microphones don't have. But this microphone is really, really nice. I used it in my gig, as I said, and I was about, maybe a foot or two away from it and playing with it, and it really sounded nice. Another feature of these microphones, they're said to be cutting back on feedback. And I've had a bit of that problem when I use my other mandolin with a pickup built in. I've had feedback with that on occasion, but this one was really nice, no feedback at all. And of course, with a condenser mic, it gets louder the closer you get to it. So if you're soloing, if you're playing a song when you're soloing, you can move up closer to the mic, and then you can back off a bit if you're just playing the rhythm parts. That's also a really a cool feature of condenser mics, and this mic in particular. Now, I'm no expert on technology, so I'm going to call upon Philip Graham to join us here on RPM to talk more about his microphones and the company itself. So let's take a look at that interview now here on RPM. All right, Philip Graham joins us from Ear Trumpet Labs in Portland. Philip, thanks very much for taking the time to join us here.
Thanks for having me on. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, and I'm really intrigued with the background to your company. I read that you started making microphones initially for your daughter, who's a singer. Can you tell us a bit about that story?
I was building various things in my basement to keep my sanity because I was a software engineer and kind of gradually getting disillusioned and tired of just building intangible things that nobody used and everybody forgot about. So I had done, different things just as hobbies, and the audio end of it started with like tube amps, tube guitar amps, some preamps and things. Just because I'm a not very good guitar player, who's more interested in twiddling with the instruments and the gear. So
Right.
when my daughter first wanted to record some of her songs, that was literally the first time I really thought about microphones. I volunteered to help her out and started looking into it. Like, oh, I guess we're going to need some microphones for this. I wonder if I could build one, just because that was where my head was at. I was tinkering and building with things. So I looked at the circuits and was like, that looks doable. And that just started a long slide down a deep rabbit hole, and that was how I first started doing them.
Well, that's pretty cool. And I have to say, honestly, trying this microphone here in my little studio and live with my band this past weekend, I'm really impressed. I mean, the sound clarity, I mean, it really adds a clarity to my mandolin sound that I haven't found with other microphones. And, even to be honest with you, I had a friend of mine say that. He said that's the best that my mandolin has ever sounded, right, listening to our band this past weekend. So thank you for that.
That makes me immensely happy. That's obviously exactly why I'm doing this, what I'm trying to achieve with the mics. Yeah, it's just as natural and true a sound as possible, and especially for acoustic instruments, guitar, mandolin, fiddle, banjo. That's kind of where uh, where my heart has always been with the mic.
Well, why is it? What makes your mics special compared to other ones?
I think the different thing that I do design wise um, is really building them with the goal of having them sound good and be feedback resistant in live use. So that's an interesting just design difference with them.
Right.
It has an overall effect on the sound, obviously, and that does translate through into recording and you know um, for studio use and video use and things like that. I mean, I'm not starting from trying to reproduce any of the like classic studio mics. Like that's just never been my thing. It's not. not been my interest. And so from that point of view, it's like they're different. Um, that goal of having them be uh, feedback resistant, or just stable in a live setting, does just lead to
Yeah.
small tweaks and changes, and it's just been my focus um, in designing them and building them. That's what I'm sort of listening for, and I think it has side effects in the sound. I don't really know. I couldn't say like why there's a particular clarity compared to other mics. It's just I think the control of the response is really important for that kind of live stability. So really keeping the high end very smooth, um, and having
Right.
low end tight and contained, and definitely not overemphasized. Um, that I think just comes across in it having a just a relatively natural sound. It's what I'm going
Yeah.
for is that what comes across is exactly what you would have,
Okay. Yeah.
in the room.
Yeah, and minimizing feedback is something that, especially mandolin players. I mean, we struggle with that. I have, my other mandolin here has a pickup in it, and I'm, plugging it into the PA and fighting feedback from time to time. I have to turn off the monitors sometimes because they're just such a pain. But to have a microphone that's going to minimize feedback is really, really something that I'm really excited about too.
Yeah, and the adjustments that you make in designing and building a mic are pretty subtle, like that the head basket design, the exact placement of the capsule within that head basket has a lot of influence over the tone that a microphone has. And I don't know that, any simulation or, even engineering theory can really describe a lot of that. It's just you tune it by ear and trial and error.
And another thing I really like about your mics is the retro stylings, the retro look. I mean, going back, it looks like a microphone from the early days of broadcasting or something. And you're also naming them with sort of retro ladies' names. I have Edwina here, and
Hmm.
you've got Louise and a few others. Tell me a bit about the thinking behind that whole retro idea for your mics.
Well, the the physical designs, I mean, sort of started, they came about because I was building them in my basement. And so they are actually made from repurposed parts. It was sort of the easiest way to do a lot of the machining. Um, and then when I went to put them together, I mean, I just have an aesthetic sensibility. Um, I was an art major originally when I was in school. So I, I, I think what I where I come to it is with this idea that I mean there is a lot of flexibility in what a microphone can look like. The electrical requirements are just simply that it be shielded, that it
Right.
be encase the inside in metal, and what that metal is and looks like is an open book. I'm a little surprised that there's not more creativity and variation in microphone design. Um,
Hmm.
but so when I found parts and started putting them together, of course I just wanted it to look cool and interesting. Um, the sort of early 20th century industrial vibe is just something that I like. I was just kind of drawn to, and it happens to
Hmm.
suit the genres of music that it's often used in. I mean, it's very popular in bluegrass and folk and things like that. And, um, I think that stage vibe works for a lot of people.
Yeah, they certainly do stand out on stage, especially the bigger mics that you sell. When you talk about repurposed materials or recycled materials, I mean, what does that mean? Is it, do I have like a Harley Davidson motorcycle parts here, or is, 57 Chevy or something? The fin from a 57 Chevy. Is that what you're talking about? I mean,
No,
seriously, what do you mean?
no, it's there. Many of the parts are standard um, standard parts made for other purposes. So I initially find them digging around we have a cool hardware store in Portland that has a lot of like literally old, torn down, yeah, things like car parts or old plumbing parts that have been pulled out of houses and things. And that was where I would initially find things and then kind of put together a design. But then I'm getting um, new parts for things. So the body itself is standard copper plumbing pipe. Um, the Some of the
Mhm.
fixtures on either end of that are, yeah, there's a standard plumbing fixture in the top of that. Some of the we do obviously we do some machining of some of the parts to make things work, but the head ring there, the head basket is another thin section of copper plumbing pipe, larger diameter, and then um, the face plates are electrical conduit sizing adapters, you know.
Okay.
And there's a lot of nuts and bolts and bits and pieces, and we do drilling and things. Some of it we manufacture ourselves. So the bracket is stainless steel that we do fabricate ourselves and bend to shape by hand, on a jig. It sort of simplifies the machining to be able to use some of the parts, especially threaded parts. Um, basically using those, repurposing them that from standard plumbing hardware or lamp hardware, things like that, on some of the mics. So the ones you referenced, the larger um, ones with a ring and spring suspension of the head basket. That ring is actually from Restaurant Supply. It's a flan ring, which I just found as like it's a great, like, nicely constructed stainless steel ring of just the right size. And yeah, so we find things wherever we can.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so I have the Edwina microphone here, and I think, for what I need, just miking a single instrument, it's perfect, right? And or a maybe somebody who's a singer-songwriter, maybe a couple of musicians. But give us an idea of some of your other mics and what their purposes might be for.
Yeah, so the Arduino is optimized for a slightly closer um, sweet spot, closer use, like you said, single source, up to about a foot and a half from the sound source, and it'll sound a little thin out farther than that. So some of the other models that we have that have a full low end that you can use from farther away would be the Myrtle, um, the Louise. Those are the ones you'll most commonly see with the ring and spring suspension that we do, and those really just have a tonal difference between them. The head basket looks different, and that actually is what influences the sound the most. We do also adjust the circuits a little bit between those. So the Louise is a little bit brighter, the Myrtle's a little mellower sounding, and those would typically be either in a recording setting. They're sort of um, normal large diaphragm condensers in a recording setting. On stage, they're really good for gathering multiple players around. So they'll typically be that centerpiece mic for a bluegrass band or, a folk band that wants to do that single mic where you can have
Mhm.
three, four, or even five players around the one mic and they balance their sound doing that classic bluegrass dance. The Delphina is one that's kind of a cross between because it's looks very similar to that Edwina that you have. It is acoustically, it's the same as the Myrtle. So it's if you want that, be able to do a record from a greater distance or gather multiple more players around, but just don't want the large visual presence of the ring and the spring. of the Myrtle, the Delphina will get you that. And we have a couple of others that are more sort of different applications. The Nadine is a large diaphragm condenser that mounts directly on upright bass. That's a really nice sounding bass mic. Chantel is a little different form factor. It's kind of more, it's end address. It's a little more like a classic like vocal mic style, and it has built-in pop filtering, and it really is intended more as a closer vocal mic, especially for louder stages. And then our newest one is Wanda, which is a kind of a different visual look. There's a number of things different about it. Um, it's kind of a compact look. It's a little more sort of a 50s vibe rather than a 30s 40s vibe of the other designs. It's also a large diaphragm condenser. It's again it's similar to the Edwina, sort of a single source, medium close use. It tonally, again, just because of the difference in the construction and the head basket, it's a little punchier mid range. It also has more built-in pop filtering, so again, it can be used as a vocal mic on a louder stage. But also the circuit was designed to handle very high sound pressure levels, so it's a good close percussion mic. You can it's good like guitar cabs and things like that. You can close mic a snare with it. It'll handle very high sound pressure.
Cool. Now I've seen, I came across your mics just, on the internet looking at, bluegrass musicians or acoustic musicians. I'm surprised at how popular your mics are. I mean, has that surprised you how they've taken off in acoustic music circles?
Yeah, I mean, it astonishes me that these designs that I came up with in my basement, and were, sort of just building initially, just for my daughter and musicians that we knew, small circle of people, that they
Hmm.
seemed to work that well, and that people did pick them up and take them and take them out in the world. I think what really, um, what's worked in my favor, I can't claim for it to really have been a plan, is that combination of there being live mics with a really distinctive visual aspect means
Yeah.
that, yeah, when they're out in the world, people see them and notice them and then ask. Hopefully they hear good sound and then they'll come and ask a musician afterwards. So they kind of got picked up in genres where a lot of the audience is musicians, performers
Right.
themselves.
Yep.
So they kind of first first in like old time music. One of the first um, users that really took them out on the road was the Foghorn String Band, who are kind of top of the old time string band genre, which is like a very small community, but it's a community where everybody plays. So wherever they went on tour, I would get calls, the next day from like the sound guy that worked the show and a couple of people in the audience. Um, and so that just sort of started rolling. And then as soon as more musicians are out there using it, the musicians see them. And the same in bluegrass, where,
Hmm.
obviously that's a genre where like the fans are mostly players. And so
Right.
there's like a pretty fast dispersion. But then, then it's made it onto, some very large stages and large, um, big names using them on big stages, which is just
Hmm.
blows my mind. But it's always
Hmm.
they're they're tools. They're tools for artists to use. Um,
Yeah.
the
Right.
whole point is to help an artist to get their sound across, their performance across to an audience, to their audience, and anything we can do to help that just makes me incredibly happy.
All right. Thanks very much to Philip Graham for joining us here on RPM and for explaining all about his wonderful microphones there at Ear Trumpet Labs. If you'd like to pick up an Edwina or one of the other mics in their catalog, check it out. The link is down below. Just click on that, go over to their website, and you can order a microphone directly from Ear Trumpet Labs, and they'll ship it out to you worldwide. Thanks very much for tuning in once again to RPM. We really appreciate your support. Again, hit a like or subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next video here on Rock and Pop Mandolin.